So today is the Research 101 workshop, the first of 4 workshops in the Writing Wednesdays workshop series, where we, the library, partners with a writing tutor or fellow from the Writing Center. My name is Jasmine Shoemaker. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the reference and instruction librarians at the library. And I'm joined by my colleagues.
Hi, everyone, again. My name is Jo Lee. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Interlibrary Loan Specialist and also a grad student. I'm very excited to talk about research with you today.
My name is Chioma. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a writing fellow and a nursing major.
Wonderful. So a few things to get everybody acclimated to the space, the virtual space, the physical space. Welcome to the library. We have more than just books within the building itself. One hot key point on the library's kind of unit is the Retriever Learning Center, the RLC, which is a 24-hour space accessible with your UMBC ID card. So even after hours, once the building itself is closed, you can go in there, study solo or with friends. There's plenty of whiteboards, vending machines, etc. The Academic Success Center is also on the first floor of the library, where we have more on the tutoring. Reference services are on an on-call and in-person basis, where we, from my department, reference, will staff a section of the checkout desk for any reference or research-related questions you might have, where a book is, if you're looking for articles for paper, etc. We also have individual and group study rooms available. Keep in mind, these are on a first come, first serve basis to reserve. So if you do know that you will need the space, days in advance, please book them as far in advance as you can. And the same goes for laptops. I believe we have MacBooks, Dells, and Chromebooks available for checkout. And I highly encourage everyone to follow our MyUMBC page for any updates along the way. This is a great page to follow for events like these, but also updates on the building and anything else. Next slide. So a short rundown of what we'll be doing today during the workshop. There is a short activity. Don't get stressed. It's really not that big of a deal. We just kind of want to gauge how you feel about research. It is anonymous, so you can answer as you really will. Basics on searching with Google, followed by navigating the library's resources. We'll follow up with a short activity based on what we've learned from Google and the library. Then we'll give it over to Chioma, who will be covering the Writing Center. Joe will be talking a little bit about citation help, and then we'll wrap up with how to get research help. Next slide. So I thought I'd open it up to basic questions that I've heard over the years as my time as a librarian. Questions that I've gotten from students, freshmen, even PhD level students, right? Why can't I just use Google to search? It's what it's there for. It's basically a verb now. You Google something, right? How do I know which database to use? There's so many that we subscribe to in the library, it can be a little overwhelming. You found an article and you'd like to use it for a paper. Now what, right? How do you incorporate that into a paper? How do you know if an article is really fitting for your research topic? And then finally, wait, now you want me to cite this? There are so many citation styles out there. Each discipline kind of has their own. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I am interested in hearing from you all. What questions do you have or commonly ask yourselves when you're doing research? Feel free to pop those into the chat. If you don't have any, it's totally fine. We just kind of want to gauge where you guys are mentally with research. We'll go ahead and move on. Next slide, Joe. Oh, I do have a question. Is Google Scholar good to use, or is that off limits for research? We do specifically have a Google Scholar slide. We'll get into that a little bit further down, the nitty-gritty of Google Scholar and how to navigate that and what is actually populated in those searches. And the second question I see is how to find peer-reviewed articles, which you're in the right place. We'll talk about both of these questions later on. So sit tight and we'll get to those questions. But if you wouldn't mind, everybody can go to the tiny URL, which is in the center of the screen. No worries if you are looking to just click it. I'm going to pop that into the chat now. And as you make your way to the tiny URL, tinyurl.com/101 fall 23.
Doesn't seem to be letting me access the link, Jasmine, but hopefully everybody else should be able to.
Yeah, can someone put in the chat if they were able to open the link?
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay.
So if you're there in the tiny URL itself, you'll see two questions in the center of the screen. How do you feel about academic research? And then there's another one that says share your article link below. Don't worry about that second one just yet. Go ahead and answer the first one that says, how do you feel about academic research? Now, there are a few different ways you can actually answer this question. There's a little plus sign immediately underneath the question. You can click there and you can either type in how you feel or you can answer by an image or a gift by clicking the little second to the last image on the right-hand side. That's a magnifying glass with an image in it, and you can actually search for an image. So if you say, I feel great, G-R-E-A-T, you can click an image or a GIF. So there's mine that I'll publish as an example. I'm seeing a few examples. I'll read them out to you, Joe. It can feel overwhelming and intimidating to start. I completely agree. A little insecure, that's totally normal in the process. It's tedious and takes a long time. All of these are very valid. I appreciate the candidness and the honesty. Stressed, doubtful about my ability. Sing another one. It's confusing. I'm so confused. I like the Seinfeld representation. Yeah, these are really great, you guys. I appreciate the honesty. It's completely normal to feel a little lost when you're doing research. It can be overwhelming. It feels new. That's a very real answer. It feels new. Depending on the subject, it can be tedious to find reliable sources that have proper citing or are free. This person just drew a circle with a line through it. I didn't know you could draw here. It's really nice. Okay, so I appreciate that. Keep this tab open. We will come back to this for the second activity, but let's go ahead and move on in the presentation. So someone mentioned Google, Scholar specifically, but right now we'll focus on Google itself. So Google is so great that it's now become a verb. I don't think it was always that way, but you kind of turn to it for a whole host of information, basically background information on an organization, an entity, right? Any brief history that you can kind of look up to just kind of get some better understanding on. Current news and up-to-date information can also be a great place to search, Google. But however, because you are now in a university, you can kind of optimize Google a step further by turning to Google Scholar. Next slide. So Google Scholar is a great tool to use if you actually are looking for scholarly articles. One key thing that I'll point out, because we are a Google campus, highly recommend logging in with your UMBC credentials when you are using Google Scholar. This will pull results that we subscribe to via the library. So I have two images here on the left. The top image is my personal Google account, right, that I use for myself. And you'll see a little tiny PDF in the middle. Joe, can you put your cursor there? The little PDF in the middle. Yeah. So that means I have full text access to one of these articles, right? If you scroll down just to the image below it, you'll see that I have more access when I'm signed in to my UMBC email address. So if you wouldn't mind going to Google Scholar, Joe. And you can easily type in Alexander Hamilton. I'm just thinking about that because I thought about the musical. So you can see Joe is signed in to her UMBC email address in the top right. That's her avatar for UMBC. And here we have full text PDFs. These are mostly books, as you can see, but you can actually um, click on articles um, and different things like that. You can also type in a different I'm thinking about a different example. I use the Crown Act just because it's pretty simple. Try the Crown Act, Joe. Yeah. This is the Natural Hair Act. These are articles. Thank you. So we see SAGE, which is a database that we subscribe to. JSTOR, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, especially in the humanities. Hein Online is a new database that we subscribe to. So all of these that are relevant, that they'll popping up, and you'll see these that are clickable, that you can actually click into and find those peer-reviewed articles. I always say Google Scholar is a great place to start, but you shouldn't just live there, right? You're not really optimizing your search options if you just stay in Google Scholar. So great question that you had earlier, Olivia. I like that question. We can head back to the slideshow.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about library searching, specifically using the AOK library website, which you can access by typing in library.umbc.edu. So we're going to head over there right now. Just as an example, I'm going to show you the results that you get from each tab here, which is the main search function in the center of the page. I'm just going to type in Chat GPT and AI in higher education. So what using the Everything tab does is it searches pretty much not just books and articles, but also it scours our databases to see if it can pop up with anything related to ChatGPT and AI in higher education. If I click search, it should show us the results hopefully soon. Yeah, here we go. As you can see, it's not just articles. It gives us conference papers. It gives us articles from academic journals, an ebook as well. So literally everything is going to be here. It's not always going to search every single database, but it will search through most of them. And then if we go back and we use the same search for books, this is going to limit the search to just books and other media like video, music, etc. So a lot fewer results here. So it only shows us the ebook. Not very many music related resources and videos, which I guess makes sense because, this subject isn't really, I guess, like media concentrated. So that makes sense. If we head over to article though, I bet you will see a lot more results. Yes, that's right, Jasmine. It is a newer concept, which is why there aren't as many books. Absolutely right. So we see already there are over 1,000 results for ChatGPT and AI in higher education for article searches. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about this Find It button here later when we get to the ILL page, actually. But these articles we can look at to see where they come from and who wrote them, but UMBC doesn't technically have access to it. However, if you see here linked full text, this one we do. So anytime you see something that says linked full text or PDF full text, we should have access and you can read the entire article that way. If you see the gold Find It button, that means we do not have access, but you can request for it through ILL, which again is, we're going to talk about that later. It's supposed to be interlibrary loan. So let's say you were browsing through the articles and you see an interesting one, for example, prompting higher education towards AI augmented teaching and learning practice. Typically, the sources are going to be not highlighted, I'm sorry, italicized right here. So let's say I wanted to look more into the Journal of University Teaching and Learning Practice. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it here in the A to Z journal list and see whether or not we have it or have access to it. And luckily we do. Journal of University Teaching and Learning Practice. If you click here on the full text access menu, you'll see which years we have access to. So we have access from all the issues from 2004 to present. Unfortunately, we don't have anything before 2004, but from 2004 onwards, we do. Anything that you want to see published before, again, you can always submit an ILL request for. And last but not least, databases. We can also explore what different databases are available that we can search through. If you already know the name of the database, that's great. But if you don't, that's fine because you can always click here to browse the databases. And the neat thing about this is that this might seem a lot like really overwhelming at first because it's just pretty much all the databases from A to Z. However, this drop-down menu here, you can limit which databases depending on the topics you're looking at, which I find to be a very helpful tool. So for example, ChatGPT and education would probably be under either education or I believe information systems here. So clicking on either one of those should be able to give you relevant databases to search through. So here is Jasmine, who is in charge of the information systems databases. You'll see the relevant sources here. And again, you can feel free to explore all the different databases that you'd like. You can even limit it by database types. So if you're just strictly looking for databases that give articles, you can click that as well. For background reading and websites, you have a few options there as well. And then if you want to limit it by vendors, you can even do that. So I highly recommend kind of playing around with the search feature on our library website because there are a lot of handy tools that you can use with the tabs that you see on the home page here.
Joe, can you actually go back to the results for the everything or the articles to just show that you can sort and filter on the left side?
Oh, yes, yes, of course. I'm so sorry about that. Let me see. Okay, so as Jasmine mentioned, you can further refine your results by using the limiters and the filters on the left side here. So if you wanted to limit to full text, catalog only, or even peer reviewed. So if you need peer reviewed sources, you can just click this and it should limit it to strictly peer reviewed sources. And then if you need a specific publication date too, you can use the slider here. Because it only shows from 2022 to 23, it's not going to let me really like use it. But let's say you had results from like 2000, then you should be able to narrow the publication date here. And then if we scroll down a little further, it's divided more into source types, subject, publication, publisher, language, geography, and even content provider. So if you wanted to limit it to just strictly academic journals, And you'll notice that the results went from over 1,000 to 688. So already that cut down on a lot of the results that showed up before. And hopefully this will help you kind of pinpoint exactly what you're looking for instead of kind of getting lost in the weeds here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joe. We had an interesting question. What is peer reviewed? Thank you for that question. Peer reviewed is just a fancy way for saying that something, either a poster or an article, has been reviewed by scholars, academics, professionals in your field. So, for instance, a newspaper article is not peer reviewed. They typically take longer to be written and vetted to be substantial for the journal or kind of the entity that they're housed in. We will talk a little bit more about navigating that and finding it for your specific discipline just in a beat. But I think Joe did a great job of just kind of showing you how to limit to peer-reviewed articles and then kind of doubling up and saying you only want things in academic journals because peer-reviewed articles typically live in those academic journals, which we subscribe to. So doing a basic Google search with ChatGPT in higher ed, you probably wouldn't see anything in an academic journal. You might see more on news or blogs, maybe podcasts, things like that. Those academic journals, that level of rigor that articles went through to be kind of vetted and published, that lives within the library. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jasmine. That was extremely helpful. All right, so if there aren't any further questions, we're going to move on to the next slide.
Right. So Joe did a great job of explaining the home page searching options that you guys have available to you. However, you can go a step further in looking at articles, databases, etc., specifically for your discipline. So if you wouldn't mind, Joe, clicking that link, it should take us to the home page. We're going to now find your specific research guides. So would you mind clicking the research help button in gold? You'll go two down to research guides. And here you'll see almost every department on campus represented. You can click on the business and economics one. So here's the guide that I've created for econ students on campus. Right away, you see on the left-hand side, it's kind of organized to either find articles, books, things that are popular for that discipline and what I feel students would need to know coming to this guide. And in the middle, we have selected databases that are specific to this discipline or this major, right? So Business Source Complete, chances are a nursing major would need to know that, or an IS major would need to know that, but these are more econ-centered databases. So I encourage everyone, after today's session, go ahead and find your research guide by going to the library's website, library.umbc.edu, clicking Research Help and Research Guides, and finding your department-specific guide to look at what recommended databases there are. And you can play around in these databases. You can't break them. We've tried many times. You cannot break them. So don't be afraid. I know it can be very intimidating, but you're in good hands. And we can go on to the next slide.
Right, so Jasmine went over how to best use the search tools that you have, including the limiters that we mentioned before. So here are some further tips that you can use. So for example, if you're doing some research about millennials or a certain generation, try out different search terms like millennial, zillennial, young adult, 30 something. I find that the thesaurus is a great tool to use if you can't think of any other similar words or terms that might be used in place of the immediate word that you're thinking of. And with a research question, select keywords to search. So Jasmine put here, what are the effects of divorce on children? So breaking down that question, that initial research question that you have, and highlighting the keywords like divorce, children, effect, and breaking those down. Oops, I'm sorry. Breaking those down is also extremely helpful. And separate your search terms with and in order to include certain words. So, for example, if you wanted to do divorce and children, it's only going to search the words, the articles for the words divorce and children, nothing else. If you wanted to use a phrase, right? Not just a pair of words like divorce and children, but if you wanted to use a phrase like, what are the effects of divorce on children? And if you wanted to see if any articles have been written about that specifically, you can put quotes around that phrase. And what it'll do is just search that phrase only. And then, as we mentioned before, you can use the left column to narrow your search. So let me go ahead and actually show you a little bit of that because I feel like the best way is to actually see what I'm doing. So let's go back to home.
Another thing that I want to mention is that when you're searching, think about what types of results you want online. So, what are the effects of divorce on children? That's really broad. You could get any type of result, but maybe if you add the words statistics onto the end or Reddit onto the end, if you're looking for um, like more personal stories, there are also more official channels where you can get like a first person review because think stories on Reddit aren't always true, but keep in mind the results that you want. Maybe if you know like of a good organization like CNN or NBC or like NPR that are known for doing like interviews with people who have um, experience on the topic, or maybe they've done like an extensive um, like deep dive research type thing into the topic. So you can base your searching terms on the results you're trying to look for.
That is a wonderful tip. Thank you, Chioma. Yeah. So really think about what it is that you're trying to search for. I think initially when you're doing the research, though, it's okay to kind of search a little broadly because you might not know exactly what you're looking for. But then once you find those sort of interesting resources like Chioma had mentioned, like maybe you stumble across in your results like an interview that someone had done, or you come across an interesting sounding article and you want to know more about it and you want to kind of search more of that similar sounding those similar sounding articles in that specific journal. That's how you sort of refine your search. And then you can fine tune your search by including certain words or phrases in addition to your initial search. So I'm going to use the example that I had done before with ChatGPT and AI. So obviously, ChatGPT is a form of AI. And already, I don't know if you guys saw that. Let me try that again. ChatGPT. Already, they give you some suggestions here. So ChatGPT and education. ChatGPT education, cheating, ChatGPT or Chat Space GPT. So what OR does is it gives you all the results that have both ChatGPT as one word or ChatGPT as two separate words so that it ensures that it catches those results as well and it's not leaving anything out. So you can use this as another kind of a sort of a wayfinder as you're doing research. And then here, okay, here we go. Here, you'll see that and is already selected. So you can put ChatGPT and AI. Or artificial intelligence. So again, this kind of ensures that anything that has the phrase artificial intelligence isn't left out. Because if you only say search ChatGPT and AI, it's only going to search ChatGPT and AI, not artificial intelligence. So that's kind of like the stuff that you want to think about when you're doing your own research. So if we hit search, you'll see that it comes up with a bunch of results still. But again, if you use the limiters on the left to kind of narrow everything down, you should be able to limit your results significantly. So kind of play around with it, see what words or phrases you want to include or not include. You can also do the quote phrase that we had mentioned, Chat GPT and AI in higher education. So it'll only search like that phrase in the results. Nope, actually, let me clear. Here we go. Chat GPT and AI in. There we go. Okay, so it says it didn't yield any results, which is kind of to be expected because I would have been very surprised if there was actually an article that had the exact phrasing ChatGPT and AI in higher education. However, that did cut down our results from like 100,000, I think, or a million to 14,000. And it still gives us relevant results. So this should, using these kind of search methods will point you in the right direction and hopefully cut down on your research time as well. Yes, we are on the right slide. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide.
Yeah, so on the screen, we have a basic research question that you might find in an English 100 class. What is the impact video games have on teenagers? We chose this question because 9 times out of 10, you've either played a video game or you've seen someone playing a video game. But we ask that you kind of do two different things, that you kind of identify keywords in this question that we previously did with Joe and the what effects does divorce have on children. Keep that in mind and pull out those keywords from this same research question and do a search for this topic in Google and do a search for the topic on the library's website. And you don't have to go pretty deep in to find anything in the research guides or anything like that. You can just simply stay on the home page, which is library.umbc.edu, and do a search in that Everything tab or the Article tab. And all you need to do is let us know what you found. You can type in the title that you found, or if it's a Google link, you can do it that way. And then you'll put it in that Padlet that we created for you under the Share Your Article link below. That section is where you'll put it. I'm going to put that link in chat just one more time in case you closed it. We're going to give it maybe 3 to 4 minutes, and then we'll check in. I see one in the chat or on the Padlet already. Video game play, any association with preteens cognitive ability test performance. I believe this was found on via our library's website. And for those interested, I'll put the link to this article in chat. Good job. See another one? Thank you for putting where you found it. The Good and the Bad Effects of Video Games on Children. This is a very recent article. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. This one was from Believe Art Library. The impact of degree of exposure to violent video games, family background, and other factors on youth violence. It's from 2017. Great work. I'll paste this link into chat as well. Thank you all for participating. I see one from Dartmouth. This is from Dartmouth News. New study, video games and teens behavior. This is from 2014. So this is also kind of what I want to touch base on what Chioma mentioned earlier. Even though we're pulling things off of Google, right, that chances are will not be peer reviewed, you might have things or results come from another university like Dartmouth or University of Maryland College Park, etc., that have been written and kind of with that stamp of approval from that university. So though it might not be peer reviewed, it's still worth reading and kind of noting that what's being written from other institutions. So great work. Internet use and video gaming predict problem behavior in early adolescence. This one was found in the Journal of Adolescence. Great work. Very proud of you guys. It's been about 4 minutes, so I think we can go ahead and move on to the next slide, Joe. Oh, there was a question in chat. Can you go back? How do you know if an article is peer reviewed? That's a great question. It really does depend on where you're getting it from. So chances are, if you're doing a basic Google search and you see something, let me pull up the Dartmouth article, something that might look peer reviewed, like this Dartmouth article, that would not be peer reviewed. It's more of a blog, more of like a news article. Peer reviewed is usually tied with a journal or any type of like official conference. Um, there is a way that you can kind of vet an article for peer reviewed. We do go into this more in depth at the part 2, which is next month, for more in-depth research. But if you are around, I can show you how to do that after the session. I just want to make sure that we get through all of our slides, but there is a database that you can look at that we can show you. So if you want, you can hang out after or you can email me after, whatever works best for you. But we'll go ahead and move on.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. So, like I had mentioned previously, if you see an article throughout your search that we do not have access to, you see that gold Find It button. When you click it, you'll see a link that takes you to, I believe, a hyperlink that says "Can't find it. Request through interlibrary loan." If you click that link, it should take you to our interlibrary loan page. Basically, what this service does is you will request an article that we don't have access to, or that there's a paywall that you can't get around. And we essentially ask other libraries that do have access to those articles to send it to you as a scanned PDF. So it's a wonderful service that I highly, highly recommend, and that I wish that I'd known as an undergrad, because this would have been extremely helpful for my own research. You can even request book chapters as well. So it doesn't even have to be like journal articles. Like, let's say there is a particular textbook that you can't get to or can't access, but you need a specific chapter from that book. You can ask for it through ILL, and we will get it to you within 1 to 2 days. The turnaround time for article PDFs and for book chapters is extremely quick, much faster than requesting physical loans. So I can't highly recommend that enough. Especially when you're kind of on a time crunch and you need that article. We try to get it to you as soon as we can. So if you click on Login to ILLiad, you should be able to see a form that looks like this. It doesn't look exactly like this, unfortunately, because I already have an ILL account. I can't show you what the exact form looks like, but this is essentially very close to what it should look like. All you have to do is put in the required information. You don't even have to put in your actual address here when you get to the bottom, because quite frankly, we don't care where you live. We're not interested in that data. So you can literally put in like a letter or a number and then call it a day. But we do ask that you put in your status and department, either undergrad, grad, or and which major you are. And if you don't see your major listed on here, you can just put other or undecided. And that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do to submit. You don't even have to worry about this bottom portion here. We're working on actually revamping the form so that all that unnecessary detail is cut out. But for now, just fill out the top half of the form and then put whatever you'd like in the address and then status and department. That should get you an ILL account. And again, what that does is gives you access to articles, book chapters. You can put in physical loans, although I do want to say that it takes about 1 to 2 weeks for books, possibly even longer, depending on which library is sending it to us. The neat thing about ILL is that it asks libraries that are not only in Maryland, but in other states and even other countries. So give it a shot. We look, at the end of the presentation, Jasmine should be able to give you the copy of the slides at the end. So you should be able to access the link for ILL. If not, the link is ill.umbc.edu. Jasmine, would you mind putting that in the chat? Ah, thank you so much. Yeah, so that is the link to our ILL website, and that also goes into more details of what items you can request, what you can't request, and all that other fun stuff. So let's move on. So I believe
So, sorry.
it's okay. Go.
So, what words come to your mind when you think of the Writing Center? I know for me, no words came to my mind because I didn't know what that was. And even now that I work there, I don't know, it seemed like a brief stint of time. I work somewhere else now. I don't know much about the Writing Center, but because I'm a writing fellow as opposed to like a writing tutor, but it's there in the back of the library. We're there if you need help. Writing help, brainstorm. Yeah, that's true. We do help with writing. And we do help with brainstorming. You can come to us at any point in time when you're writing something at the very beginning, at the very end. We can help with it all. Can you move on to the next slide, please? So the Writing Center helps UMB students, like I just said, with writing in any class at any stage of time. Apparently, we also do resumes. I didn't know that, but that's something that the Career Center can help you with. But the thing that we don't do is like edit papers. Like if you want us to look over like grammatical errors or like sentence structure or like rearranging the paragraphs in your essay, we don't do that. You might want to ask your TA for your class or your teacher or your classmate. So sometimes you can like schedule an appointment with a writing tutor online. Those are 45 minutes long, or you can just come in person and like walk in, see if there's anybody there who can help you. If they're all helping somebody else, you're gonna have to wait a bit, but once that person's done, it's your turn next. Online, we can help you from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. from Monday through Sunday. And then tutoring begins next week, and then I think ends on December 11th. The university should have sent you an email about that. We have tutoring for a bunch of different classes. Any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat while I'm talking. So like I just said, there's tutoring for a bunch of different classes: bio, chemistry, comp sci, math, philosophy, physics, statistics. Math, biology, and statistics, they send a lot of emails about tutoring for that because a lot of people have difficulty in those areas, and a lot of us are STEM students. This is like a STEM school. There's a specific center for computing, and there's a specific one for math and science. So there's group tutoring for like lower level classes, which I haven't gone to before. I was afraid of not knowing what I was doing in front of other people because I hadn't been studying. But there's no shame in that. Don't do what I did. You should still go. And then there's like one-on-one tutoring, which is what I did. So there's more tutoring available for the lower level classes, and then for the upper level classes, um, because they're more niche with the different majors, there's not as much like wide availability and like wide formatting, wide like different types of formatting for the higher level classes. But there is always help for your upper level classes. If there's not tutoring, you can talk to your teacher. You can go to their office hours. You can go to SI Pass. You can go online. There are a lot of different ways for you to find help in an upper level class. If the writing center does not offer, I'm sorry, if the tutoring center does not offer tutoring, you can schedule an appointment up to 24 hours before, and then I think there's a penalty if you cancel um, too soon to the start date or start time, and then there's also a penalty if you don't go. If you don't go 3 times in a row, then you're blocked from signing up for more tutoring. Then I think you have to appeal and explain why you didn't go to the first 3 appointments, and then maybe they'll give you permission again to sign up for stuff. So, setting up an appointment. So this is what it looks like. You would press schedule a tutoring appointment. As you can see, we're located in the library. September 13th through December 13th, not December 11th. So there's a video in the corner that will explain to you how to sign up for a tutoring appointment, but you have to say what class you're doing it for, like math or philosophy or computer science, and then where it says choose a service slash reason, is that like just a picture, or can you actually?
Yeah, so I believe it's just an image,
Okay.
but everything else you went over was exactly right. Like essentially, if they want more information, they can go to that link. I also want to add that you can find tutors by subject if you go to the link as well here. So because of course there are so many other like additional disciplines within the math and science departments. So if you follow that link, you should be able to see the subject tutors for that specific area of study that you're looking for, which I think is a pretty neat tool. So please use it if you ever feel like you need the extra help.
And then if there isn't, when you're using the website, if there isn't a tutor for what you're looking for, you can always email the tutoring center stating what you're looking for, and then they can find someone for you. So, when you're writing your paper, a lot of teachers will advise you to just write whatever comes to your mind when you're thinking of answering the prompt. Don't try to like structure it. Don't try to make it perfect on the first try. Just like write whatever comes to mind. I like actually cannot do that. Like I actually cannot write whatever comes to mind. It has to be like perfect as I'm writing. So like there are some people, because I know I'm not the only person who's like this, that has to be perfect while you're writing. Just know that if you're the type of person that like puts a lot of effort into writing your essays, um schedule in the proper amount of time. Like number 3 says, don't wait until the last minute. Don't be like me. Um some people start with the introductory paragraph. Like the first sentence is supposed to be like a hook to make people interested in what you're reading, but you don't always have to do that. Just know that the thesis statement is supposed to be the foundation of your essay. So you can write your essay and even the conclusion paragraph before you go back to writing the introductory paragraph and the title. Um, there are other tips here. You can ask other people for help. You can ask your friend, ask your TA, and just like talk about what you're doing. Maybe they can give you insight that you didn't have before. And then it says have a balanced relationship with your inner critic. I can't do that. But there are people that can be like your external balance. I know I had a teacher who would always tell me, it doesn't have to be perfect on the first try. Just start, just try something. If it doesn't work, we can work through it. So if you don't have a balanced relationship with your inner critic, find somebody else who will. Otherwise, you're going to have a very skewed perspective of what you're writing, and that is not going to answer the prompt properly. Always take a break. If you start at the last minute, there's no such thing as time for break. So make sure you budget enough time to work at like a steady pace, not a rushed one through your work. And then as a conclusion, or for conclusion paragraphs, don't rephrase, like don't just rephrase what you said. You can conclude with like a challenge or a quote or an appeal for action, a solution, a vision for the future. I know politicians do that a lot when they're talking, when they're like concluding whatever their selling point is. They conclude it with like a challenge, like America, why don't we just why stay right here? Why not go forward or something like that? Or why not make America better than it already is? That was funny. The one thing about the conclusion paragraph though was don't introduce new information there, and then when you're quoting, like it says add a quotation, but don't add a quotation that will like support a new idea. Just make sure you're concluding what you've already said. Do do
Yeah,
Jasmine.
so we are kind of pressed for time. I know we are trying to wrap up at 5, but just know that there is a career center in the Math Psych building, room 201. This will all be handed out to you guys if you're not registered. Shoot me an email and I'll send you the slides. I'll also put them in chat at the very end. You can go on to the next slide, Joe.
Okay, so I'm going to give you kind of like a summary of what the slide is trying to say, because we are pressed for time, like Jasmine said. So essentially, citation is important because you're trying to give credit to the people that you're referencing in your papers, right? So there are many different types of citations. There's the APA format, there's also MLA, and there's also Chicago. Your instructors should tell you when they give you an assignment what kind of citation that they would like to see in your paper. So if you have any questions about the citation, like, oh my gosh, like I'm not sure how to do the APA format, like how do I do that? Click on this link here. It should take you to the page in the library's website where the librarians have done a wonderful job of organizing sort of like a guide on how to for different citation styles. Another website I highly recommend is OWL Purdue. Like that's been always my go-to for citations. They give pretty good detailed help on how to correctly cite your sources. And again, the slides will be provided, so you can always click on the link in the slide if you need to come back to it.
Right, so I know we went over a ton of information today. We'll go through one of these, step by step, but go ahead, next slide, Joe. So one way that you can get help from us after today would be utilizing our chat service. On all of our kind of web pages on our library's website, you'll see this little window pop up with a red bar at the top or a little yellow bar that says Ask a Librarian on the side. There in yellow, thank you. We do a chat service. This is staffed by people in reference every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can ask a question outside of those hours and we'll get back to you the next business day. So if it's over the weekend, you won't hear from us until Monday. Highly recommend utilizing this if you're looking for a book or specific articles for a paper, etc. Next slide. You can also get one-on-one research help with your subject librarian if you go to the link, Joe. Click on Research Help and make a research appointment. Here's where you'll see every department represented on campus with the corresponding subject librarian. You'll be able to meet with us one-on-one 30-minute sessions We'll talk you through how to search for your specific assignment, any questions you have about specific databases, etc. Next slide.
We also want to highlight the fact that there is a virtual study room, and that's through the UMBC Library virtual Discord, which is pretty cool. If you need somebody to just hold you accountable while you're trying to get that assignment done, while you're trying to get some studying done for a quiz or an exam, please go to the link here, which should be able to give you access to the Discord. There are lots of different channels that you can go into. If you want some music playing in the background while you're studying, there's the music channel. You can also request songs as well. It's moderated by students, but also by our wonderful reference librarian, Beck Hurdle. They're actually the one who started this up. All you have to do is pretty much agree to the guidelines, which basically saying that you can't harass people online, and a lot of other safety guidelines. Once you do that, you should be able to access the virtual study room.
Yay, and we've come to the end. So I wanted to highlight our next workshop coming up next month, October 4th. We'll be kind of using this as a building block to hit this next workshop, which is stepping up your research game, how to strategically search for those papers, for those assignments. Then we'll talk more in depth about how to cite sources, why they're different citation styles, how to find more about that for your specific discipline. And then actually myself, Joe, and Shioma will be back in December for finding your flow for navigating those final papers. All of that can be found on our MyUMBC page under events, and we highly recommend registering for those ahead of time. Next slide, Joe. Are there any questions that we didn't get to? Did anybody need a link or anything crazy? I will go ahead. Feel free to pop any questions in the chat, but we are 2 minutes over. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Joe. Here's our contact information on the screen. Mine up top, ILL is Joe's department, so you can contact them and their team for any ILL requests or questions that you might have. We have information on the Writing Center, as well as Elaine McDougall, who is the head of the Writing Center, and then other information. I will put the link in chat now directly to the slides. So anyone who couldn't, quickly write this down from the screen, you're more than welcome to click on that link and favorite it, start, whatever you need. Those slides can be yours forever. Oh, you're welcome, Olivia. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording.